Decisions are about to be made. Charlie, we got to make a decision, and we got to think long and hard about this. And that decision is my 2015 5K iMac is really starting to show its age. I've just not wanted to get a new computer because this one was such a workhorse. It was such a beast. I love this computer. Terabyte Fusion drive, 27 gigs of RAM. It's an Intel processor, so I know the M3s are way better. But just the other stuff, the RAM, I don't know, it's a hard decision. And let's go talk about it some more, but I think I finally came to one. Sorry, old friend. Off to look for your replacement. You've been good, you've been true. And you're about 11 years old, so you definitely got my money's worth out of you. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory on this here in a second. So as I kind of already mentioned, my current computer is a 5K 27-inch iMac with a terabyte Fusion drive, an Intel processor, and 27 gigs of RAM. This was a pretty beefy computer when it was first released, and I actually bought it from a friend. He is the guy that, he likes to have the latest and greatest of everything, which, hey, worked out for me, because he decided he was going to build himself a gaming computer, a PC, so he was getting rid of his old Mac. So I traded him a few electronics I had that I knew he wanted, and $500 cash. So I got that Mac for $500 like 6 years ago, and it's been a beast. In fact, it still works like a champ. The problem is a lot of the programs and software that I need to use for a lot of the things I do is no longer compatible with that specific version of OS. And unfortunately, that OS has reached its end of life. So last couple times I went to go do things on it, it's telling me, oh, your software is out of date, or it's not going to run as efficient as it's supposed to. There's also been a couple other things. The screen would randomly just go out, and it would eventually come back on, and then it would go out again. This hasn't happened a lot, but enough where it's concerning. If I'm in the middle of working on a project or something and it just goes away, unless I saved it or auto-saved it, like, I could potentially lose that stuff. So it's time to move on. And I decided to give that computer to my mother because she wants an actual desktop again, and it's still good for everything that she uses it for, like crafting and things like that. But it's weird. I'm on my way to look at Macs again, and I used to be the biggest Apple computers person you'd meet. I was PC, give me Windows. I loved it, and I'm still a Windows guy for the most part. But back in 2008, when they announced the first iPhone, I was still in college. And that year, because I was the guy, I never really asked for a whole lot. When I was in college, I paid my own bills. I was going to school full time. And I remember my mom said, hey, it was around my birthday. And she says, hey, Apple said they're making this new thing. I saw it on the Today Show. It's called an iPhone. I really want to get you one for your birthday. And I was like, you don't have to. And then she's like, no, I insist. And this is the funny part. We went down to our local cell phone place. And we went there nonchalantly because neither one of us really knew what the hype was around it at the time. And we go in, we're like, we want to buy the iPhone. They go, okay, we have one left. We're like, cool, 8 gigabytes. I'm like, 8 gigabytes? Who needs an 8 gigabyte phone? That's so crazy. And then I remember they said, all right, that'll be $440. And my mom was like, oh, no, we want to do the 2-year contract. That was with the 2-year contract at the time. And that started me on my Apple, my Apple path. I got into their ecosystem at that point. Literally everything I own at this point is Apple, and my tune has since changed. I'm no longer the anti-Apple person. Pretty much everything I do and own is Apple, as far as my computer, my iPad, my watch, my phone, my computers. I have Apple TVs. I have my AirTags. I am an Apple guy at this point. And I want a very specific version of the computer I'm going to look for, and it looks like the only place in town that carries it is the Apple Store. And they don't have the color I was wanting, but at the end of the day, the color is not going to make or break my decision. It's like, how is the color going to affect performance? So, oh well. Alright guys, next stop, the Apple Store. We are going up there because it looks like they do have one in stock. I didn't order it ahead of time because I did a trade-in on my old iPad Pro, and we're going to turn that in and go from there. And hopefully they'll knock off a couple $100 off the total price. On to La Encantada Mall here in Tucson, Arizona, to the Apple Store. Just got to La Encantada Mall. I'm going to switch over to the iPhone when I'm inside. But this is like the rich people mall. I feel super out of place and awkward here, but it's the only Apple Store in Tucson. I always feel like someone's going to ask me for a pay stub being here. I mean, they got a Crate and Barrel. I mean, they have a Tiffany's and a Lululemon here. I am way out of my element. I'm more of the outlet mall kind of guy. Here we go. And we're off. Well, and there she is. Let's take her home, get her unboxed, and compare her to our old one and see what we're working with here. Isn't this the best metaphor for life ever? It's just chaos all around you. Just got home to drop off the computer, but we have to go get Henry from summer camp first. Thought I'd wear my new Avengers hat I got at Disneyland. So let's go pick him up, then come back and clean up the desk area and open up a new computer. Just getting done with chores, just got done vacuuming. Now it's time to play. We're going to open up our Mac and compare it to our old one and kind of do an unboxing for you. And it's looking a lot better up here. Just keep in mind, we just got back from vacation, so still trying to put away everything from our trip. Whew, I gotta tell you, man, vacuuming has been a lot easier. We actually just picked up one of Dyson, which I never thought I would own because they're outrageously expensive, but they had a good deal at Costco. Holy cow, there's a difference. Not for Dyson or anything. This is a tech show, so let's talk about it. Best vacuum I've ever owned. Holy cow. But before we go any further, before we do anything else, we gotta clean off this desk. Time lapse. So that was a lot grosser than I anticipated. And I just want to say thank you. You watched our previous videos where at Disneyland. I hope you enjoyed them. I tried something new. I didn't use any external mics or anything like that. I wanted to look like home movies because that's what they were. They were us enjoying time with our family. I wanted to look like old school 1980s and 90s VHS home movies type deal with the hard cuts and picking up and going. And also I just wanted to enjoy our time there because we were there with family. I wasn't really there to film content, I was there to film what was happening around us. And I haven't turned off my old one yet because we're going to do side by side with them as we're going to do the migration assistant where I'm going to move most of the stuff over. And I'll go over a couple concerns when we do that because this is a terabyte drive where I've used 400 gigs. My other one is a 512 gig where I'm sure about 30 or so is going to go to the OS. So let's see what it does to my hard drive. But for regular work, I use an external drive, so I'm not that concerned. But let's see. Admittedly, this is way grimier than I usually let it get. It's been a busy last few weeks, and I just have not been staying up on a lot of this stuff. As you can tell, I'm sweaty and tired, but we're almost there. And you can tell I work at my desk a lot because this is less than 4 years old, and it is beat up. What can I say? I enjoy my work. Ah, much better. Nice and clean and shiny. Some of you always ask what this is. I know you guys are used to watching my YouTube videos, but I actually wrote comic books for quite a while. And this is the little company and moniker we wrote it under, Silly Monkey Comics. And actually, I'm hoping to do an appearance here pretty soon. A friend of mine's opening up a new comic book shop, and they asked if I'd come and have a table there. It's been years since I've written anything new, but hey, this may be the way to get back into it. Him and his wife are good friends, and I'll always be there to do anything to help open their shop. So I appreciate them inviting me, and I'll be there to support them. I mean, if you're in Tucson, make sure you check out Presidio Comics. While cleaning off my desk, I moved these boxes. This is all from the last few months. I think I might have a problem. Of course, we all have our problems. We collect different things. Now for the part you're probably tuned in for, the actual unboxing. Here's the box to my old one, here's the box to the new one. 27 inches versus 24 inches. Before we open it, let's kind of talk about what we're missing out on. A couple things that I loved about my old one, it was 4 USB ports USB-A, and it also had an SD card slot reader. New one is 4 Thunderbolts, which USB-C, Thunderbolt, I mean, it's what everything's going toward. I do have to have some converters for some of my old stuff, but not that big of a deal. It also does not have an SD card reader, but I do have a USB-C adapter that I've used in the years on my MacBook Pro. So those are the two main differences. The other one is this has an Ethernet cable, this one did not, or at least so I thought. I didn't realize it was actually on the power brick down below. But I tend to use Wi-Fi, so it's not a huge deal, but it's nice to know that it's an option. Time to open it. All right, time for the moment of truth, the satisfying portion. Ooh. Well, I guess there's no turning back now. We broke the seal. Now that popular question we all ask, what's in the box? You know, it never ceases to amaze me. I love how well Apple presents their products. It's actually just fun to unbox them. Turn out there. And there's our computer itself, but let's put it off to the side for the moment. First glances, way smaller than my old one, so that's gonna be kind of weird getting used to. Open that up, pop that open. We have our power cable, our power cable, our block, mouse, and keyboard. Now, a big difference between this keyboard and mine, this one does have the fingerprint reader on it, and it does come with the smart mouse, but I have a trackpad that I prefer. So we're gonna go with that one. And that's really it. Let's move on to the next stuff. Well, while we're waiting for the other mouse to charge, let's open up and show you kind of the differences. Like I said before, I'm gonna use a trackpad, the new one, but we're gonna wait to hook that up in a second. Here's my old keyboard. Here's a new keyboard. Size-wise, very similar. In fact, almost identical. However, as you see here, up where the eject button is, which I always thought was weird that it was on there since I don't have a disc player or a CD-ROM of any kind. It's a fingerprint reader. So very similar to what I have on my M3 MacBook Pro. Otherwise, it's the exact same layout, exact same setup. I do think it's a little small for me. I would rather have the longer one, but hey, this is perfectly good for me for right now. Next up is that power block. Just kind of unwrap that. And like I said before, I actually was like, oh, it doesn't have a Ethernet cable, which is weird, but nope, there's our LAN cable right there. It's actually in the power supply, which I feel is kind of odd, but you know, hey, I'm not the engineer behind it. And the big difference is too, with my older one, it was a hard plug-in into the desktop unit itself. Now, just like the MacBook, it's a magnetic connection, which I think is pretty neat and pretty cool. I can't wait to actually utilize this one. And not very exciting, the actual portion that plugs directly into the outlet. So they took what's basically common, what you expect to be, and again, packaged it really well to make you excited to open it. And all this does is plug in right, yeah. So that part's good to go. I didn't open the mouse because like I said, we're gonna use a trackpad, but I have my old Magic Mouse for this desktop plug charging right now, so we can manipulate it and start getting this prepared for the new computer. What's next, you ask? The desktop itself. And before anybody decides to roast me in the comments, I know desktop's not the proper term for it, but tomato, tomato. It goes on my desk, it's an all-in-one, it's a desktop. So let's unwrap this one. And like I said, my first reaction was, oh, this is so much smaller. But smaller doesn't always mean worse. And like we discussed before, let's talk about it. We got the 4 USB-C with 2 Thunderbolt connections. And one thing that's kind of cool is on the side here, it does still have a headphone jack, which I find interesting because all of Apple's products don't really use auxiliary cables anymore, headphone jacks. Simple power button in the back and the brushed silver. Truth be told, I did prefer the blue one, but they didn't have it in stock with the specs I wanted. And as far as the specs go, I know I mentioned them earlier, but I'll tell you again. It is a 512 gigabyte solid SSD drive, a 10 core processor, and it's the M3. So, and 16 gigs of RAM, because I do a lot of video editing. To me, for what amount I do and the sophistication of what I do, which is not very high, this is a perfect computer. And I actually traded in an old iPad that we weren't using anymore, so I got $235 off of it. Again, once again, so satisfying. And there they are side by side, obviously not turned on yet, but definitely a big difference between 27-inch and 24-inch. But there might be something that works in my favor, and if I decide to do it, we'll cover that later. I was having a little bit of difficulty connecting my old mouse to the computer, and I realized it really doesn't like the black glass surface on my desk. So once again, Pout Pout Fish comes to the rescue, because I don't own a mouse pad. Because we are going to use the migration assistant when it calls for it on the new computer. But with that being said, let's turn it on. Hey Charlie, want to come help me turn on the new computer? All right, Charlie, say 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
We did it. And here's where we use Migration Assistant. So it's going to be looking for other Macs on our network, which is this one here. And the key to this is you have to have the program running on both. So right now it's setting up the migration system on here, and this one's looking for the ones on the same network. Yep, and there it is, Tommy's iMac. And this is the part here that I'm anxious to see, because this is a terabyte Fusion drive. This is 512 gigs. I was using 400 gigs on here, but I think a lot of that was just like ambient stuff. So what I'm hoping is not going to be too terrible. But granted, I use external drives for most everything. Ooh. Ooh. So far this isn't coming out good. It's calculating just my files, and it's 131 gigs. Because granted, in my cloud drive, I have over 500-600 gigs. So it's done going through all the information that it can transfer from my old computer to my new one. However, it was saying it's going to be like close to 240 gigs worth of stuff. But here's where I'm a little confused. In the applications portion, it's 120 gigs. I weaned down my actual profile down to 102, but under my profile is applications. So is there 2 different applications it's trying to transfer? Because I believe they're coming from the same place, so why would I transfer duplicate applications? So I'm going to turn off the applications one, which is the largest files. I think that's going to contain a lot of, because I have like Adobe Premiere 22, 23, and 24 on there, because I just never went back and erased the old ones because I didn't really need to. So we're going to transfer without the applications, and worst case scenario, we'll re-download them. So let's hit continue. And so it begins. The transfer from the old to the new. That was way too dramatic. Going from the old one to the new one. So let's give it some time and see what happens. So far it started, but so far we've transferred one of 370,149 files. This is gonna be a long day. All right, migration is complete. It only took about 2.5 hours. So let's continue and see where it takes us from here. Ooh, I recognize that background. And as we talked about earlier, there was lots of stuff that was transferring over that we didn't necessarily need or might be duplicates. So we're gonna see what actually did transfer over. And like we were saying earlier, instead of an eject button, which made no sense in my old computer, we have a fingerprint reader now. No chopping off my fingers. It's asking for my card information. Don't look. Well, that's one way to start it out. I kind of told it not to transfer all this stuff, so let's go through it. So right now I'm working on downloading all my Adobe stuff because I'd use Premiere, After Effects, Lightroom, and Photoshop quite a bit. So waiting for those to finish downloading, but it looks like everything downloaded well. My only concern, again, is the storage room. I'm looking at that right now. And right now I'm currently using 156 gigs out of a possible 494. There is what I like to call the gray data, which is like the operating system and everything else. But I mean, I have 300 gigs available, so not bad. That's better than I thought it was going to be. I take that back. It's gone up a little. That's because I'm downloading stuff from Adobe right now. And that's what we're going to call the video. If you're watching this, that means everything works. So we're going to call it a day on the unboxing and setting up of our new 24-inch iMac with the M3 processor. Thank my old friend for everything you've done for me. I'm ready for the new adventures. Well, tune in again. If you haven't done so, please like and subscribe, and let's take another ride together soon. I know what you're thinking. It's about time we finally did a tech video. It wasn't that in-depth, but it was mostly in between me setting it up and getting frustrated. Stuff kept stopping in between, but I think that's more of my old computer than the new one. All right, guys. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye, everybody.